Hey guys, welcome to this new channel called Sully on Tap, where we take video games and we take sports topics and combine them into one. Essentially, we're creating a sports bar in your own home. Now let's get started with the show. Here's what's on tap is how I'm going to introduce the topics to you guys before we get into them. So first we're going to talk about the Spurs and the Grizzlies. I know game 2 was yesterday, but I want to give you my thoughts because they didn't really change before the series started. And I think they're pretty interesting. I'll see what you guys have to think in the comments. And also we're going to talk about the Heat and we're going to talk about the Pacers. A key matchup, and I think this is the matchup everyone's looking at. Game 1's tonight. I'm going to give you guys my thoughts and who's going to win. So now let's talk about the Spurs and the Grizzlies. And before, I don't want to offend any Memphis fans because I know as a Wizards fan, I could understand when someone takes shots at my team. But let me just say that I didn't have a lot of confidence going into this matchup on the Grizzlies half just because they struggled against the Oklahoma City Thunder. They didn't play very well. They took it down to the wire, and that team was without Russell Westbrook. And the key to Memphis is always defense first. Defense, defense, defense. But let me break down the key players and the sleeper players on each team. So first, the key players for the Grizzlies. Mike Conley, huge factor. Now, Memphis is spearheaded on points by a three-head monster of Conley, Randolph, and Gasol. But Conley, his keys are assists and steals. Now, why is that? Steals are important because it helps the Grizzlies defense. Without the steals from Tony Allen and Mike Conley, I think they'd be just a above average defense, but they're a great defense because of Conley steals. Zach Randolph, he brings points and rebounds. That's what he's known for. He's able to get boards in the post, extend possessions, and that's one of the keys to Memphis if they want to win this series. Marc Gasol, blocks and points. I didn't throw in boards just because, I don't think he's as consistent as Marc Gasol, but yet blocks and points are huge, and that's what he brings to the table because he's the defensive player of the year, but for some reason he didn't get first team all defense. I don't understand that. But the sleeper pick is Tony Allen. He is a guy that they need to watch out for. San Antonio steals. He was pretty much, stride for stride with Mike Conley for steals, but also he brings defense. He can anchor a defensive unit, and that's what he does for Memphis and Randolph and Gasol. That is a very dangerous defensive unit. Now let's look at the key players for the Spurs. First, we have Tony Parker. Points and assists. That he runs that offense. He can penetrate, kick out to Kawhi Leonard, Manu when he makes shots, that is, and also Danny Green. In addition, Tim Duncan. Timmy D. He gets points, rebounds, and I had to include blocks just because everything he does is important. Him and Tony work so well together. The offense goes through them, and I hope he wins it. I hope he wins the finals. He's a champion and he's a class act, but he anchors that offense and the defense with the blocks. Now, my third person might shock you, but it's Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard, I believe, is personally a huge part of the Spurs team because he gets steals and threes. Defensively, I think he can match up with Tony Allen. And what I mean by that is that he can help anchor that defense with that steals threat that he always has, whoever he's guarding, and also he can knock down threes. In game 1, he was 3 of 4 from three-pointers, I believe, and so look out for him just because he can bring that three-point shot, and he can also follow up and get his own rebound score as he's done earlier. The sleeper, Manu Ginobili. I didn't have him as a key part just because he's been struggling. He hasn't found his shot, but at the same time, down the stretch, he's huge. He can make shots, and so look out for him. I think, personally, he's going to do a fine job of making shots when it counts. The keys for the Grizzlies, sorry about that. The one thing I would say is they need to stay out of foul trouble, and I know that's key for every team, but the Grizzlies, if Gasol or Randolph get in foul trouble, they really take a hit. Overall, across the board, as I mentioned before, they'll lose points, rebounds, blocks, defense. So foul trouble is huge. I think also they need to slow the game down. Memphis is a half-court team. I don't believe they're a well-established team for the fast break, or they want to get out and run. They can't do that. They're too big. They need the half court and then get rebounds to extend their possessions. They need to eat up the shot clock. Then for the Spurs, I just think they need to play their game. Allow Tony Parker to orchestrate it. Popovich knows that team. He's done a great job. They have shooters for days. Kawhi Leonard, Matt Bonner, they can shoot. Tim Duncan can hit a mid-range shot. Allow Tony Parker to work and just have everyone passing. They have so many options. That's when they're at their best. My final prediction for this is I really think the Spurs will get it in 5. I don't see the series going to 6. If they don't sweep, it's definitely 5. Just because if Memphis struggled against a Russell-less Westbrook, if that's what you want to call it, then they're going to have their hands full against the San Antonio Spurs. So those are my predictions for the Spurs and Grizzlies. Now let's look at the Heat and Pacers. Now let's look at the Heat and the Pacers. And before we get into that matchup, I just want to say I've used NBA 2K13 footage in the background to sort of illustrate how I think both teams will play coming out in this series. With the Heat and Pacers, I think they're going to play a little bit slow, specifically the Heat. I think there's going to be a little bit of a sloppiness. They'll be down early just because they haven't played in a while, but I have full confidence that they'll come out and play a tough and hard game. But now let's talk about the matchup. For the Heat, the 3 players are LeBron, Chris Bosh, and Dwayne Wade. That's their 3-headed monster. There really is no denying that. With the Heat, their players, LeBron James, he brings everything. Blocks, steals, assists, points, rebounds. But I would say most importantly, he brings size, especially in this matchup. His frame and his body, that's going to be huge. I mean, that to me is a staple of his game. Not just what he does, but his body and his speed and his athleticism. But also Chris Bosh. He's the leader in blocks, which is huge. I think that's important, and that gets underlooked in his game. Through this playoffs, he averages 2 blocks a game, and I don't think he's gonna battle Roy Hibbert as well as some other like Marcus Gasol would, but he needs to play big, a lot bigger than what he really is or what he tries to be. And then we look at his game. He also has the mid-range game. He can shoot, and he can attract Roy Hibbert to the outside, add a little space to allow Dwayne Wade and LeBron to drive. And then lastly, Dwayne Wade. Now, he could be a sleeper pick just because we don't know his health yet. Some say he's good to go. Some say he's running on empty. He's going to be the factor. I still think LeBron and without D Wade can go to the NBA Finals. But Dwayne Wade, he brings steals, defense, and then his driving ability is very huge. It's an important aspect to this game, and it's also important to the team. It creates shots. When he drives, it opens up other people. A sleeper, the obvious choice I would say is, you can say Ray Allen is an obvious sleeper, but I'm going to say Norris Cole. I think Norris Cole he's sort of working on coming out and making his game known. I think Mario Chalmers, he's played well, but Norris Cole, I really look for him to play a big, important role in the Heat winning this series. For the Pacers, it pretty much is it's a 3-headed monster. It's a 3 or 4-headed monster. First, we're going to talk about Paul George. Steals and points, that's his game, and also rebounds. He's close to a double-double this postseason, but again, I think mostly his offense and his defense. The 2 steals a game is huge, especially against the Heat. I think Paul George and LeBron is going to be a good matchup, and Paul George matches up with LeBron, which is very important. Roy Hibbert, the second person, he's monumental. If he doesn't show up, the Pacers don't have a chance. He averages 10 rebounds in the postseason, and he's almost at 3 blocks too. So his defense, I look for his defensive presence, but also let's not forget his post game. He has a nice hook shot, he can work well in the post, and he has good court vision. The last player I think is important to the Pacers is David West. David West, he brings points. He also brings offensive boards. 2 offensive boards in this postseason he averages, which is 2 possessions. And so far in these playoffs, games have been pretty close. And so those offensive boards could pay dividends late in the game. He also brings, I think, a mid-range nice jump shot that can open up for Roy Hibbert, Paul George to drive, or also George Hill. He's a great person. He's a great basketball player, averaging 16 points a game. And I think his game with the drive and the passing ability, he's quick. And you can't underestimate that in a player. And let's not forget that he also gets around to steal a game. And the defense of Indiana is very good. They work very well together, and they're a solid unit. So it should be interesting. But to be honest, I mean, I don't see them personally getting anywhere against the Heat. I think the Heat are so driven right now. I'm going to say in 5. That's what I think. I believe these matchups are being overhyped. Guys, to be honest, I mean, you look at Indiana, I just don't think they have it yet. I think one more year, because they're going to try and play physical. In the playoffs, I don't know if they're mentally ready to go up against the Heat, but I don't know. I don't give it to him. I think LeBron is at another level right now. We are really, since LeBron won his last ship, you're really seeing him come into his own. And I don't think he's going to allow Indiana to push him around. So those are my 2 series and what I predict. I just don't think it's going to work out in Indiana and Memphis's favor. But now